Welcome to Lupus Speaks Podcast, where we navigate the journey of living with lupus together. I'm your host, Shedrica Shant'e, and I'm thrilled to have you here. And I can't wait to share new stories and insights with you. So grab your favorite drink, get cozy, and let's dive in.
Welcome back to Lupus Speaks. I'm your host, Shedrica, and today I am honored to introduce a very special guest, Kim Peacock. Kim is a fellow lupus warrior and an inspiring advocate who's here to share her journey, the highs, the lows, and everything in between. Before we begin, a quick disclaimer. This episode includes discussions about sensitive topics, including mental health and depression. If these topics resonate with you or feel close to home, please listen with care. Now let's welcome Kim to the show as we explore her story of resilience, her experiences living with lupus, and the valuable insights she's gathered along the way. Kim. Hi, y'all. Welcome back to Lupus Speaks Podcast. Today, I'm going to sit with Kim Peacock, who has such an inspiring story. Hi, Kim.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. I've been really looking forward to this chat. So I really want to check in with you, and I wanted to see how you're feeling today, any ups and downs that lupus can be unpredictable, I know. So how has it been lately for you?
Oh my gosh, that's a crazy question. It's been crazy. I had back surgery in May, and when I came out of back surgery, I was doing really, really well because I'm a yogi, and so I was in really, really good shape. However, the hospitalist that was taking care of me for the couple days I was in the hospital afterwards disregarded my stress steroid script from my rheumatologist and my surgeon because she thought I was doing so well. I wasn't using a walker. I wasn't, so she did not give me my stress steroids. And I've been on steroids daily for 16 years. And I've also flatlined during surgery. I've had a million surgeries. So we know that I have to have the stress steroids, which is for the adrenal glands. Long story short, I got released. She didn't give me the steroids. I went unconscious when I got home. My husband called 911. And since May, it's kind of just rolled into craziness. But what we've come to realize is that I have very minimal, I have no cortisol in my body at all working. My adrenals are not working at all. So I'm on high steroids and trying to reduce, but with all those high steroids and rheumatoid and osteoporosis and my bone issues, I have really bad bones. And I take a bone drug every day. I inject a bone called Tim, and my feet are breaking. And so now my foot broke, my right foot broke along my left foot was fractured in July, and I was hospitalized. And then I've been in a boot, and then I was healing and feeling so good. A foot an ankle specialist said, yeah, we think we can get you into physical therapy pretty soon here and get you going. So that was a couple weeks ago. Well, I'm a certified yoga instructor as well. So I kind of know how to, get my body back to normal. I was doing some light yoga according to what my back surgeon would want and this foot. And my foot hurt me really bad about a week and a half ago. It swelled up and the pain was horrendous. My foot is broken now 3 more times.
Goodness.
So
And you were just walking around cleaning up earlier, like,
I'm in my boot. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. I'm supposed to be in a wheelchair. And can't do that. It just doesn't, it's not conducive to my life. And so I'm really intuitive about my health, like a lot of loopies are. And even when I'm on social media or, a lot of loopies will reach out to me, especially after it's 11/11. I love those signs. It's like God saying, you're on the right path here. It's like you have to really be your own person, your own advocate with this disease. Dr. Solomon had called me this week because he said, I have some messages from you, and rheumatologically, you're finally looking normal. Hence, I'm on Benlysta. I'm on prednisone. I started methotrexate about a month or so ago. I'm on an injectable bone drug, and I'm on like a gazillion other drugs. So finally, like my blood is looking good. But we all know that our blood work can look normal, but we're sick as a dog. So the blood work to me is just like irrelevant. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. But back to my point, I've been saying to Dr. Solomon for quite a while, I feel like something's not right in my bone marrow. Like I feel that. I've had broken bones for quite a few years. My ribs broke and my clavicles broke on their own a few years ago. My foot is basically just cracks in half. It's very painful, but I have a high tolerance for pain because we're loopies, we're warriors.
Right. Ooh, that is a lot to take in and understand because some of these things I've never even heard of.
Really scary. It's really scary. And I knew I had it as well. And I kept saying to my doctor, and I'm not disparaging him in any way, it's just so rare. And I said to him, I said, what happened is I got an infection in my bone and my bone became like exposed and the pain was so bad. And I ended up at an infectious disease doctor and she was like, whoa, this is like way over my pay grade. You need to go to the hospital. I end up in the hospital and that's when they were like, you are really sick. I'm like, no SHIT, you know what I mean? And my husband's like, she's been saying it for months. But it's like all the weird, rare things seem to happen to me. So it's really hard. I understand the doctors. They can only do so much. That's why us loopies really, really, really have to, mean what you say and say what you mean. And, you know, it's a really hard disease to have because a lot of people are just like, my God, like, is she a hypochondriac? So you
Right.
become very inward because
Mm-hmm.
it's like, wow, how could I have this many things wrong with me? I mean, like in 2013, because my neck was so bad, they were MRIing me and discovered, an egg-sized tumor in my chest. That is called a mediastinal tumor, and it's actually an anomaly from birth and a precursor to lupus that grows in.
What?
Yeah, yeah. And I would have died from that. It was on my aorta. They had to go in with a robot to fill my lung and chest tubes and ICU. Not one person in Arizona had ever operated on this. So I had like the head of the hospital thoracic surgeon was so excited to do it. But you're talking about like weird stuff and people are just like, Kim's having another surgery again. It,
Okay.
it's crazy. So that's kind of it. I guess that'll parlay me into, probably why you are even asking me on here is all these years of going through these ups and downs and ins and outs. When it started to become more physical for me, where people could see like my hands, my face, when I went paralyzed, I looked heinous, by the way. I started to realize how people reacted more. And I started to become very depressed about it. It
Mm-hmm.
made me think like, wow, so we are a human race where if we don't see it, we don't believe it.
Mm-hmm.
And like, where does the empathy come? Like, are you going to be empathetic to me because you've experienced it, but because you don't even know what lupus is, you can't even be like, wow, I'm really sorry. Or can you tell me about it? Typically,
Mm-hmm.
what I do is I'll say to someone, hey, just go to the Lupus Foundation and look it up.
Really?
That is what I almost always say to someone
Okay.
because explaining it is really, really, really complicated. And like, if you don't catch someone in like the first 1 minute, they're just going to be like, well, I heard it's like something that makes you really tired. Isn't it like fibromyalgia? Not to disparage fibromyalgia, but like, I mean, people with lupus that are waiting for kidneys and organs and, people like me that are like falling apart and their bones are just going to break. And like you that, are fighting, we're all fighting for our lives on meds and taking the time to do podcasts and all this. Like, we're like, really? You think we're going to make this much of a ruckus because we're tired?
Right.
Go to the Lupus Foundation. There is actually a whole button. There's like a place there that says, do you know someone with lupus? Do you want to know what this is? Click on
Mm-hmm.
it and it's very, it's very like, there's clarity there.
It's funny that you say all of this, not to be funny, but I just started with a new therapist. So he's not familiar with me. So one of the questions that he asked me just recently was like, well, why do you celebrate an illness? And I was like, really? Like, I'm not celebrating the illness in itself. I'm celebrating my life and the things that I've had to go through and the things that I've had to endure and how shocked I am that I'm not gone, that I'm still here, I'm still capable, and I don't allow myself to, give up. There have been moments, this has been years, and it's probably just been the last 10 years where I've actually felt like I was more than just lupus. Prior to my children, I was just like down, depressed. I didn't want to be here. I wanted the suffering to stop. I just complained. But I feel like, in a sense, lupus humbled me because I didn't realize what empathy really was and understanding something that you can't see and just really caring for a person outside of what you can see from the outside. Genuinely, because you just don't know what people are mentally battling. I'm pretty sure. I mean, I don't look sick. You don't look sick just looking at you. So
Yeah.
most of the times people don't know like we're fighting. And so just being able to walk around with that understanding and the compassion to have for others without knowing like what they're really carrying is just such a big deal.
It really, really, truly is. And to even add on to what you're saying about like celebrating life and lupus and why would you celebrate your anniversary? Like, honestly, to have a diagnosis of something, I mean, whether it be lupus or cancer or like, I really need to know what I'm fighting with my bones. Like, if it were cancer and they gave me 6 months to live, I would be like, okay, I got this. I just need to know what it is. And so, like, when you celebrate like lupus, you celebrate your knowledge of how you can do this, you know,
Right. Yeah.
and that is the beauty of it. And also, too, when people will say to me, like, oh my gosh, how could God give you so much more? You've been through so much. And some people go through a lot. And our family has gone through a lot. I mean, I'm chronically ill. My son passed away from a fentanyl overdose in 2019. And, we've lost so many of our family members. We've had so much tragedy and so many illnesses and so much stuff. And I have to say, it only makes me more loving. Recently, more loving, also more aware, which gives us that like ability. We're ascending. My therapist always says, Kim, every time you go through one of these trials, you ascend.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to make a little bit of a suggestion to you. Take it for what it's worth, but if you love your therapist, awesome. If you're just starting with your therapist and you feel like you have to keep explaining yourself and all that you go through, that's not the therapist for you.
Right.
Fortunately, I have a therapist, I have a psychologist, and then I have a psychiatrist. My psychiatrist happens to be an internal medicine doctor, a psychiatrist, and like some other doctor. He's freaking brilliant. He's kind and wonderful. So he's not only a psychiatrist, he's a really neat, smart guy specializing in health issues. And my psychologist also specializes in health issues. So like she actually knew I had osteomyelitis before before I knew. She was like, you got osteomyelitis, Kim. So I had that support too. So when you're doing what you're doing, you need that support. Like when you're in therapy, you need your therapist. And all of us Luppies, we need that from somewhere else because we're probably not getting that very many places unless you have a really special family member, like your spouse, your partner, whomever, best friend, that really has, poured into like learning and understanding about lupus. But after being sick so many years, how many years 10 years? Was this your 10-year anniversary?
16.
16. Okay, we're the same. That's right. Because
You said December 2008 and I was October 2000.
That's right. So we are the same. That's a really long time. And so, like, in the world of grief, like when my son died, and he was 22 years old, mind you, I lost my 22-year-old kid. 3 months later, people were like, "Are you better now?" Like, in our social world, in our world, we're so upside down. Like, grief has like a mortality rate of 3 months. Well, you're talking about death of a kid. Well, think about lupus, a disease
Mm-hmm.
nobody even knows about. And
Mm-hmm.
we're fighting 16 years and like still really fighting, like
Yeah.
hospitalized. And, a lot of us luppies, I watch us on social media. I'm like in the hospital again. Last week, I saw her at the gym. This week, she's barely alive. People don't get that. They don't even
No,
get that.
I avoid the hospital as much as I
Me
can.
too.
I can't, I do not like the hospital. And it's not because it's a yucky place. It's just that they're not going to help me.
They don't
Like,
know anything about
they
lupus.
don't know what to do. They just send me right back home. And then they just tell me to make an appointment with my rheumatologist. And it's like, but I need something right now. That's the whole reason I came. So I just don't even worry myself. I'll just do what I do until I can see my rheumatologist or my PCP to kind of like help me, because going to the hospital, it's just a waste of time.
It's totally what we do. We live so many times where people will be like, "Why aren't you at the hospital?" And my husband, he's like, "Oh no, we don't go to the hospital. Unless she's unconscious, we don't go to the hospital." First of all, a lot of hospitals don't have rheumatologists. Well, here in AZ, almost no hospitals have rheumatologists. So you're telling them how to treat you. You're like,
Right.
"I need this dose of and they're like, "Wait, what?" So it's just so crazy. It's such a crazy, I mean, if you can kind of have a handle on it, and I know I'm speaking so light about it, I hope that I'm not minimizing it for anybody because it's serious. Yet it's like, if you don't become really tough and be that warrior that we all say we are, you really will just, I mean, go down a rabbit hole that's just crazy.
Wanted to go back some because I know you gave us some history as far as like some of the things that you've experienced like recently. But how did you come about with the diagnosis for lupus? Like, what was your symptoms? What was you feeling? What was something going on in your life that you felt like maybe brought it on?
Well, of course, there are a lot of contributors to lupus, and like I was actually just on Lupus LA the other day listening to Dr. Wallace talking about just even in the years now, in the past few years, how things have changed. He wrote a phenomenal book called The Lupus Book that anybody that's new with lupus should read it. It's The Lupus Book by Daniel J. Wallace. It's phenomenal. He probably needs to update it a little bit because it's been a while, but like he's even said, so many things have changed, and the way that they even, classify things. Like for a long time it would be like if you had organ involvement, you got treated one way. If you don't have organ involvement, you got treated another way. Well, like, what constitutes organ involvement? Like, I mean, bone marrow is organ involvement, which, I deal with bone stuff. So we never know. So
I
anyway,
mean, even your skin, because that's the stuff that I
skin,
deal with.
your
So, yeah.
skin, yes, all of it. And they're all really learning like the whole thing about brain fog. I mean, it's a real thing because now, like, I have Raynaud's. Well, they say that Raynaud's can be in our brain, but
Really?
yes, when we're flaring, we can have Raynaud's in our brain. I mean, there's so many complicated moving parts about our disease now that every day they're learning and growing from. So like of the past, it's almost like antiquated, yet we still have to recognize that because that's still how a lot of people will feel. So let me just share this. I'm going to be 55. I had my first child. I was pregnant at 19. My husband and I welcomed her when I turned uh, 20. And shortly after having Chelsea, my oldest daughter, who will be 35 this year, too, I can't believe that. I feel really old. Anyway, I started to have weird things like anxiety, heart palpitations, things like that. But I was a very busy woman. I've been a hairdresser since I was 17. I was married when I was 18, been on my own since I was very young and a very go-getter kind of gal. And at those days, I mean, I smoked cigarettes like I breathed air. So it was
Wow.
cigarettes and coffee. So, I mean, that obviously didn't help my
Immune system.
at all either, but it was like the 80s. So we all did that. So I don't smoke anymore. But anyway, so with that being said, I would just kind of push that off. You didn't really go to the doctor unless you were really sick then. Like, I don't even remember if I even had a physical, after I was a little kid. And so then I had my second child when I was 24. And after I had her, I became very ill. I literally lost all my baby weight probably in 2 weeks, got really thin, went to my OB, and they were like, your blood work is a little off. And I'm like, okay, I owned a salon at that time with my mom, and I was just too busy. I now have 2 kids, salon, and I don't have time for that. So I never even went back. It just wasn't anything like, I was never really like a person that was like, oh, I'm so sick. There were often times we didn't feel well, but you just kind of like brush up and be like, whatever, have a cigarette and a Diet Coke and coffee. You'll feel
Right. Right.
kind of the way the old days were. So I had moved, at the time I lived in Lake Havasu, and I had moved from Lake Havasu to Phoenix area. And I had Sydney in 94, and then I got pregnant with my son unexpectedly in 97. I just was like really not thinking that was going to happen anyway. He was an amazing gift, and he literally saved my life because I had not gone to a doctor and gotten rechecked after I had Sydney. So it's now 90. I got pregnant with him in 96. So it's 94 to 96. I go in, meet a new doctor, get an OB, and this OB calls me the next day and she says, we have a problem. We need to redo your PET. And I'm like, okay. So long story short, I had cervical cancer.
Wow.
Another precursor to lupus. A lot of these. So, and just to back up a little bit and kind of clue you in, the blood work that wasn't coming out really well or normal with that second child was my thyroid. That's
Another one.
So,
Yeah.
to make a long story short, I ended up carrying the baby, and I saw an oncologist that specialized in OB during that pregnancy. After I had him, they induced me, and I had a home biopsy. It had not gone invasive into my uterus, so they just took out basically almost the whole cervix and just left kind of like a thin layer and got the cancer out. Shortly after I had Tyler, I was once again I got really thin, and I was having these really crazy, weird things happen to me when I would drive. Anywhere I'd go, I would have to pull over. I had this newborn, and I'd pull over and people would call like 911. I'd end up in the hospital, and my now ex-husband, he would say to me, what is going on with you? And I'm like, I don't know, but I'm like passing out. And the hospital would say, you have anxiety. And I'm like, okay. So then I had a doctor that I wasn't really that close with. She was like just like a regular physician. And she was like, you're anorexic. I said, I am not anorexic. Something's
What?
wrong with me. I eat. I can't hold anything in. I'm so skinny. I literally feel like I'm going to die. I can barely carry this baby around. I have 3 small children. So I was at the salon one day and I just passed out in the middle of the floor. And of course, they called 911 and I end up in the hospital again. But I finally end up in a hospital that actually cared. And I had very severe Graves' disease, which is autoimmune.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to have my thyroid removed. So I had that radiated. And that happened in 2001. That actually helped me feel better. They kind of started me on the Synthroid and all that and got me normalized. It took a while, but then I started to simmer and feel better. And through that time, I had gotten divorced, and this is many years later, in this interim time. So it's like 2001 to 2007, get married, and we have a child, my fourth child. And after I had her, I became literally within months, I started to not feel well. But I was changing the baby one day, and my husband had come up to me to give me a hug, and he was like, you have a huge lump in your armpit. And then we started to realize I had lymph nodes that were like this big all over my neck, all my armpits, and my groin, behind my legs. So at that point, I had an amazing internal medicine doctor that I loved and adored. And we went to her. She sent me to an oncologist. We went to Mayo. Mayo took the lymph nodes out. They basically thought I had lymphoma. And at that point, I weighed like 85 pounds. I was very sick, and we had no idea. And I was diagnosed with lupus within like a year. I was very fortunate. I was so sick that like I was positive for everything. So I had many autoimmune, antiphospholipid positive, and all that stuff. So my doctors were like, couldn't even believe I had 4 kids because they believed that. And then later, when they found the mediastinal tumor in 2013, they realized, wow, you've had lupus your whole life. So I remember now being a little kid and getting these weird rashes and high fevers, lupus. So that's kind of how it happened. I mean, I was deathly ill. It wasn't like, it was like if they hadn't diagnosed me with lupus, I was going to die of something. Lupus.
Right. I
I was at death's door. And then I was allergic to Plaquenil. So I didn't get to take Plaquenil, and I'm allergic to aspirin. So I can't even take aspirin for my antiphospholipid. And then I was getting sicker and sicker, and I didn't want to take any of the meds, but I started prednisone. But yeah, that's my story. And everybody's got one, and then the cervical cancer came back, and then I ended up with a hysterectomy. But cervical cancer is very silent. That's why they tell you, get your PAPs,
Mm-hmm.
go to those female doctors, get your mammograms, all these things. I don't even know if you would know, like it would have gone invasive. You'd probably be at like stage 4 before you would even know that you even had cervical cancer, because it's quiet.
Yeah. So the main thing that you mentioned in the questionnaire or something was about your depression journey. So that was kind of like what I wanted to talk about as far as the theme for this episode. So I wanted you to kind of dive deeper into that a little bit and just give us some advice on how we can navigate those moments when they're dark or they seem dark, or you just don't feel like you can get out of those moments. Can you share that?
I love that. And I thank you so much for wanting me to talk about it, because that is really my passion. Ironically, it's pretty hard to talk about that without talking about all the stuff that we just did talk about,
Mm-hmm.
because all of that kind of adds on to that pile. And I guess what happened was, and I'll try and make it pretty simple. For very, very, very many years, I was always able to control my mind. So I thought, I'm extraordinarily like insanely artistic and very like verbal, and I'm sure you can tell, and I'm extraordinarily communicative. So there's not a lot that goes on in me that if you're a person in my life, you don't know it. Like if I'm mad at you, I'm going to tell you I'm mad at you. So I don't really I don't hold a lot. I can't say that I'm overly moody. I'm a very pretty cut and dry kind of gal. So, years ago when I became sick, how I got a psychiatrist was I was on a medicine that they were giving a lot of people with lupus, and
Mm-hmm.
that became a black box. But they said to all the doctors, stop giving this to your patients. But you couldn't just stop it. And don't ask me what it was. I can't remember what it's called. And I know they don't give it out anymore. And I was on it. And I wasn't having a contraindication, but I did have to come off it, and I had to be weaned off it. And my rheumatologist said, I need you to see a psychiatrist, and I need you to tell them what's happening, and he needs to wean you off it. So with that being said, I met Dr. Bisla, whom I love and adore, and he's been my psychiatrist for very many years now. And that's how I even got there. And so then through talking, he was like, and this is years ago, he's like, my God, you're amazing. Like, how do you even do your life? You work, you're a mom, you're this, you're that, you own a business, you're a crazy busy hair, and you're sick. And I'm like, yeah, no, I got this, right? And I did. But then we started to realize I had chatter. So this is something I talked about a lot for a lot of years. I'm like, yeah, I have chatter. Well, now I've come to realize I'm not sure if it was chatter or if it was just depression. And I just was like so hell-bent not to use that word, because for a lot of years, especially in my age group, we didn't say the word depressed. Never told the doctor you were depressed, because they would put it in your medical record and then you're like crazy, right? So
Right.
there was a lot of stigma to it. There still is. It's just a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
So long story short, I was on a medication to help with chatter, which was risperidone in a very low dose, because I have a lot of allergies to medicines. So I couldn't really take anti-anxiety meds. They made me feel weird. So this was what they did. So as these years have come on and different things, and, hysterectomy, obviously, then aren't my hormones. And we all know, like with lupus, especially then with antiphospholipid, we can't take hormonal treatments like a normal woman could. So we have to bear with so much stuff and carry it on our back, and then, just deal with it, right? Plus, I'm on
Right.
steroids every day.
Right.
People are insane on steroids. To me, this is just me. I don't even know the difference. Like,
Right.
they give me life. I think I'm used to it, and my system is different than someone else. But when the whole myelitis thing happened, the infection in my bone, the pain in my head was so terrible. And this was about 2 years ago. That is when, and my son had died. And I also, I started to utilize alcohol along with pain meds, along with depression, along with and when I say depression, I say it like in the light term, like, who wouldn't be depressed? Their kids dead.
Mm-hmm.
COVID happened. We had to close our salon. We had to spend our life savings to keep it open and let our girls, not have to pay rent, like financial stuff. And the world's gone crazy. And now I've got this infection in my jaw, and I'm in so much pain, and life just got insane. And I started to kind of feel like I was getting things were changing for me. I wasn't, my husband and I were fighting. I mean, we passionately fight all the time anyway, because we're both very strong personalities.
Right.
Oh my God, I can't even believe I have to do this. So that's kind of what happened. That was so last year, around dealing with all this stuff and this face and the paralysis and the changes and what I look like and all that. And the feeling, obviously, I mean, I'm not that shallow that it's all about what I look like, but what it was it was made me so vulnerable, because
Right.
you couldn't hide, and you could try and be as tough as you want to be, but people would be like, whoa, and you're like, just, so all that around January of 23, things started to get a little bit different. I was still seeing my psychiatrist, still seeing my psychologist. She was becoming concerned because I was really struggling. I was struggling with how hard I had to work still physically. I feel like I never had really accepted that I'm sick internally in the sense of like, I don't really rest. I never gave myself that, and then there would be the family members that would be like, I've been telling you for years you need to rest. And it's like, that's great. Thanks for telling me I need to rest, but who's going to pay the bill?
Pay my bills. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, like, I mean, I have a husband, but like we're a team and we own a business, and hairdressers only make money when you're cutting hair.
Mm-hmm.
You're a stylist. You know, we own a salon. It's a rental salon. Their rent pays the rent on the building, and what I make behind the chair feeds my kids.
Mm-hmm.
So people just don't really get that. Everybody, it kind of goes back to that, like, people only see what they want to see. They see a beautiful girl, beautiful home, this husband, wife, family. Oh, they got it all, but really inside there's a lot going on. I'm now getting sicker. My hands look like this. I can't really do hair. And parts and pieces of me, they're starting to fall off, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my birthday was March 13th, and I remember feeling really, that I can say I started to feel really blue. My daughter, I have, so Chelsea is 34, down to Peanut, Ryan. She is 17. She's a senior in high school. She has only known a chronically ill mom because I got
Right.
diagnosed right after she was born. She's
Right.
very aware, very mindful, and she's always like watching out for me. But we're really close friends. She's a cool chick.
Mm-hmm.
She started to notice, like she would be like, "Mama, are you okay? You know what's going on?" So to make a long story short, I was very, very depressed, and I didn't know it. And I think that my family probably didn't use that word because I was so disparaging towards that word. And so people in my life would be like, if you're depressed, you just get out of bed and take a shower and go outside and get some sun on your face. Okay, really? And I come from a family with mental illness. So I know that it's there. Like, I fundamentally knew, like, this could be a thing. I just don't know why I didn't put the pieces together. So that's why I'm talking about it so much more. And like when Lupus LA asked me to do their podcast, this was a year after this had happened to me. Nobody even knew that that really happened to me because I wasn't talking about it because I knew I needed it to be said and spoken in such a way that it could really impact our community, chronically ill community. And then the numbers started coming out last year that lupus has one of the highest suicide rates of chronic illnesses, including cancer.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it
Well,
does.
for some reason in my mind, we all are fighting and we all warriors. So I just cannot imagine like that. Actually, not necessarily the thought not happening because it's so easy to have that thought, but to actually like do it, I just really wouldn't think that.
So I wouldn't either. And that's not what happened to me. And that's not what happened. And that is so smart, how you even parlay into this next part, because like I have a psychologist that will say to me, it's okay to feel like you don't want to live some days. We all feel that way. Especially when you're so sick, like we get, like, I don't think people really understand what a flare feels like. I mean, you literally feel like you're being run over by a
Literally use that and that analogy all the time. I was like, and then backed up and rolled over me again.
100%. And you can't describe that. And no one's ever even going to know like that. Our joints feel like someone's taking an axe and going to chop our arm off. But that's all over our body. And we have joints all over our body. So, people just don't get that. So there are times where we're like, I just hope I don't wake up. That's normal. But what happened to me was abnormal. I lost time, but my family didn't even realize I lost time. I was so clinically depressed that by the time this happened, what happened was I only remember the few minutes before I laid down, before I literally died. I did not think about suicide. It wasn't like I'm going to kill myself. Apparently, I cleaned my whole house. I love design, and I rearranged my closet, had no recollection. I spoke on the phone with my sister-in-law for like 2 hours. Don't remember that. She knew something was wrong. One of my close friends the night before, she felt like something had been different. Now they all know, like, whoa. But they were like, Kim would never do something like that. So, like, what you say is it's not a choice. Like, when the depression is so dark and we're depressed, it's a chemical imbalance. It's
Mhm.
like, you don't wake up and decide, I'm going to have a stroke today.
Right, right.
Body goes wonky and you get a blood clot or something happens and you have a stroke. You can't control it. You can't be like, I tried to control the stroke. So it's the same thing. And it's about like opinion. Some people can be like,
Mhm.
well, it's a disease, it's not a disease. I'm not here to shove anything down anybody's throat, but
Right.
I'm here to say that, like, my daughter, my 17-year-old, basically saved my life. Apparently, I had been texting her throughout the morning and she was getting weird feelings. And my husband and I own a salon. We're also very busy realtors. And he was showing homes about 45 minutes away that I was supposed to be with, and I just couldn't go. And she kept calling her dad, something's wrong with mom, I'm telling you. And so I remember a few minutes before, I just had said to my dog, Enzo, the love of my life, I said, Enzo, I'm tired and I just need to go to sleep. And I took 60 lethal pills that I drummed up. And,
Mm.
being chronically ill, we all have pills, you know,
Mhm.
have medications that we could take. It's not that hard to do. And
Right.
I went to bed and he laid with me and my husband called. Guess I had my phone and I didn't, I guess I pressed the phone, but he called 911 from 45 minutes away. They showed up 3 minutes later and I was pretty much dead. I've met the man that saved me as a young man, literally really looked like my son. And when he met me, he cried and he said, I can't believe you're alive. And then he said, you really need to see the police cam to see how blessed you are. And we just finally saw that. And I really don't know why I'm here other than to tell my story. And I was on life support for 2 days. They were having a hard time keeping me alive. They had to do some really crazy, weird, life-saving medications through my heart that were going to make me not have a functioning brain. I have nothing, from that. And it taught me a lot. It taught me
Mhm.
about, I do take Cymbalta. I was in the hospital for a week, and then I was in the behavioral health center because legally that's where they had to send me. So I had an amazing psychologist there, and she was like, actually, she was a psychiatrist. She said, you literally, I can't believe that I'm looking at you from looking at this. This is I don't want to be here anymore. And she's like, I understand why. She said, you got a lot of problems, lady. And I'm like, I know. And she said, you need to work out some of the mind stuff out. And I really started to work on some of like my childhood stuff, my stuff that I wasn't really dealing with my disease, the marriage, all these things that we all kind of push aside because we feel a lot of, it's really hard to be the person that keeps racking up the debt with your medical bills and we don't have retirement working all these years because we owe $5 million, whatever. Every other minute I have a surgery. I mean, I've had so many surgeries, it's insane. And that eats away at you. And then on top of it, we're chemically imbalanced. And then I was chemically imbalanced. So I take Cymbalta, and I am like a new person. I have not had a stitch of alcohol since that day. I'm not saying, that you can't have alcohol or whatever. I've just chosen to have complete clarity. I'm a very yogic woman. I believe in yoga. I've done it for years and years. I have a teacher training certificate. And then I also live by Ayurveda as of the last couple years. And Ayurveda is a very natural lifestyle where oils and eating and learning your dosha and all that. And I do a lot of that, which helps with my inflammation and helps me look better. So there's a lot of things modalities that you can do. I'm not saying that everybody that may feel depression has to get on antidepressants. I do. Every doctor that's spoken to me is like, you will be on this till you die. I now know I take antidepressants, and I have family members that take antidepressants, and they have tried not to take it through the years. Like, okay, maybe it'll be good. And they now are like, listen, I have depression. I am chemically imbalanced. If you don't believe in depression, that's cool. You do you. I'm doing me. I need antidepressants or I'm going to, walk off a cliff. So it's a real thing. It's not made up. It's not, pretend. It's mental health.
Thank you for sharing all of that. Like, really. Like, I was trying my best not to cry. Only because, it was a lot of things in there I could relate to. And then also just hearing it and then feeling like I was like there in that moment mentally, just like how you could just be on the verge of that. And I mean, I know I've felt like that several times in my life, especially with having my second daughter. It just seems like I feel like I had her when I was older, which I guess having her at 35 is not that old, but
Not now.
yeah, not now. But for me, it's like, okay, look, I'm not as young as I used to be. My patience is a little different. My body feels different and just
Hormones are different.
mental, just like, I'm like, oh, my capacity has maxed out. But so I definitely have had thoughts, but I feel like because of my girls, it would be hard for me to do it. But like you say, you probably wouldn't even recognize it showing up. Like it just chemically just, you just do something. Just
Yeah. That's like
yeah.
a piece, like what you're saying, I mean, a lot of us, some people I'm certain that know me would probably and may hear the story. There's always going to be someone that's going to be like, I just can't believe she would even do that. Well, I can't believe I would do that either.
Right.
It wasn't Kim Peacock. I wasn't me. I something bigger had taken over me. And it's kind of like, somebody that has schizophrenia. If they get off it, I mean, they're like a different person. They could murder 500 people and then you put them in a jail cell, throw them on their meds, and they wake up and be like, wow, how did I even get here? I mean, that's like a real thing,
Mhm.
And so I feel like when after this time, it was very, very difficult for me to get back into my life. First of all, I was really sick. I was trying to really come off a lot of meds. And my daughter was living in Chicago at the time. And she had said to my husband, she's like, I want mom to come here with me. So I went to Chicago for 3 weeks. She Sagittarius. She's very she's a great girl. But she's also very quiet. So we just did a lot of like watching movies and stuff like that. And she got me back to yoga. And we really had a really good time of like beginnings of starts of things that I really hadn't done for a while, because I was taking a lot of those things out of my life, which were signs of depression. Like when your family member is starting to do off things, that might be a sign, and I was taking away all the things that made me feel great. I wasn't doing anymore.
Yeah. It sounds like she allowed you to rest finally.
She did. She did.
That's what it
You know
sounds
what?
like.
You know what she did say to me? It was about 2 days before I was to come home, and we finally sat and had like a real heart-to-heart conversation.
Mhm.
And she did tell me, she said, Mom, I can't believe that you did that. I would have never in a million years believed that my mom would have killed herself.
Mhm.
And she said, I'm not going to lie, it scares me to know that you had a capacity to do something like that. And I said, it scares me too. I have never known that I could have done that either. So when people say I just wouldn't do that, I don't think we know who would or who wouldn't.
Mhm.
I mean, like, would you think that half the people that are in Hollywood, that they'll find out had clinical depression or like Robin Williams had like some kind of a brain thing. I mean, again, going back to the beginning of our conversation, people don't really understand our brain is an organ. We have a disease that attacks our organs. And then we take a million meds that attack our organs. So how do I...
Then you just include just life and the
Life.
way the world is right now. You just like you said, it's put all that together and you're about to bust. Just a normal person. So I
Period.
just imagine just lupus on top of that. Like it's just a lot. So yeah.
Is. So, without sounding, maudlin, I feel like it could be life-saving. Like, and that's why I think talking about it and the bravery of you sitting here across from me, saying you feel so low sometimes that you're just like, what am I doing here? That
Yeah.
that you should have the freedom to say that in your community, in your lupus community, your family community, and have people care enough to be like, do you think we should call your doctor? Maybe do you want to try something? Without someone being like, well, get a real problem or comparing or all these things that people do. Like, you're just like, what is wrong with the world?
Yeah. I'm very fortunate to have the support system that I do. And my family dynamic, I guess, surrounding me is very small. But they get me. Like I told you, my sister is like my heartbeat. She's like my heartbeat. And she gets me. And even when she doesn't, she just has a way of peacefully being able to like listen. Like just her quiet is enough for me to just vent it all out. Cause I can be like so, and I sometimes have to watch myself because she's an empath in some way. So some of the stuff that I'm carrying, I don't want to put it all on her because it will affect her as well. So I have to be mindful. I just can't blurt it all out. But I appreciate that space. And my partner, he's new to this. So he's learning in the last 5 years, like, oh, that's what a flare look like. Because he knows I have lupus and he knows that I have to deal with things and I have to take medicine. But he's like, oh, she actually have to give herself the shot. Okay. Oh, she has to do it every week. Okay. And then I'm like, and then you got to remember to take out the trash and you got to do this because I can't remember all these things and remember. It's a lot.
It is a lot.
It's a lot. So just having a support system of people around you to really just like let you just be able to vent everything out and feel your feelings. Because I feel like if I weren't able to feel my feelings and say it, then I would not recognize myself to the point where I would be in your shoes. Like, just like, okay, whatever.
Do you think from hearing my story and the way that I articulate it and how I share it, do you think it's beneficial to you and others? Do you think there's something I could do to make it more understanding? Or do you think I'm on the right path in how I feel that it's so important to share this? Does it resonate for you? Does it feel good?
It resonates. It definitely resonates. I think that people need to see and hear and understand the truth of it, not the other side, but the truth of it. Because, you don't really recognize what you will and will not do until you in it, And so just being honest and not trying to say like, I wouldn't do that because I say I couldn't see myself doing it. But that doesn't mean that I wouldn't. You get what I'm saying? It's a different terminology in that.
Yeah.
So, being honest about it and the way that you're approaching it, I think that it's a great conversation to have and other people relating into that idea of like, yeah, it can be that bad. It really can be that deep. And honestly, to me, I feel like I don't really deal with a lot of lupus symptoms in the way that I've seen others do. As far as like kidney failure, just like really internal stuff, organ stuff. Most of my stuff is just like my skin and joint pains and things like that. But that's because I'm on medication. So it's kind of like somebody really telling you like where this all can go mentally. It's just important. It's just an important conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. And, somebody's tolerance could be, like I have an immense high tolerance for
For
things.
pain.
I'm a survivor too. I come from,
Right.
dysfunctional childhood and this, that, and the other, and all the stuff that a lot of people have. So therefore, this is just my constitution is strong in general. But just because my constitution is strong doesn't mean that like nothing's ever going to get me down. And then also, just because maybe your lupus symptoms aren't as severe as mine, like, often people will say to me, when they're talking to me, they'll share with me maybe something that's going on with them. And then they'll be like, oh my God, I don't even know why I'm saying this to you. You are like, you have been through so much. How can I even be complaining about my sprained ankle? And I'm like, because that sprained ankle hurts
That's for you.
worse than my whole body, because your body doesn't even know how to metabolize that. And irrelevant about how I feel, I care about how you feel. And I'm an empath. It's funny because Pisces are empaths, we just be anyway. And so for me, it's really, really important to keep this journey very individualized, like, and not have to always like quantify why and how. Well, it's kind of sometimes in the lupus, especially with people, like I would meet people in the salon and some of the stylists would be like, hey, my client wants to talk to you. They have lupus. And I told them you had lupus and they don't believe you have lupus. Then we'll sit down and like their lupus is probably like significantly not to where mine is, and then they'll be like, well, you look great. You're working behind the chair and I've watched you for years, you don't really know what I'm going through. And a lot of the times, because I am so forward, I'll be like, hey, listen, we don't need to do that. This isn't a competition. Who's sicker here?
Yeah.
Because that's not even cool. It's like, hey, you want to talk to me about how you feel, and maybe I can give you some advice, or maybe I tell you what I do. I try to stay away from advice. I try and just say what I do,
Right.
because that's where it gets really ugly, because
Mhm.
like I know like a little yogi that's incredibly brave and amazing, and she's just been through hell and had like major heart surgery. She's finally back in her yoga world, and that's what she does for a living. And she's a part of Lupus LA and all that. And some people may look at her that may not research her and be like, oh, yeah, right. Like she has lupus. Like this chick was at death's door and like has a scar from here to here. And like, yeah, she's a survivor. But yet you could also have skin lupus and have joint pain. But why would that be diminished? Because joint pain might as well be as bad as having your organs fall off.
Yeah.
The same meds that we do. Do you know what I mean?
I'm on the list of
Do you know what I
prednisone,
mean?
cell.
All the same. And self-tip is gnarly. And like, that's the part that is really important to me. That between the depression and just like all of us, like sounds so like kumbaya. I mean, I'm all about love, peace, but like it is about love, peace. Like let's love each other. Let's accept each other. We're all sick. And if we don't lift one another, we can't expect that the community outside of us that's not sick understand it.
Yeah. Yep. So with all of that, I appreciate you so much for coming and talking to me. I mean, I feel like this conversation is going to be long, but it's going to be so meaty. And I really hope that people get some value from this. So if they want to reach out to you, where could they find you?
I just have my regular Instagram. It's at Kimmy Peacock, Kimi Peacock, or Kim Peacock Facebook. I just write me, shoot me an inbox if you have a question. If you want to keep it private, I'm totally cool with that. And some people I'll give my phone number to, like, because they really need to be in touch more.
Mhm.
and again, I'm not a doctor, and certain things I'll be like, ooh, ask your doctor. But there's so many things that, we just need each other to guide one another and just to be there. So I'm just so grateful for you, and I appreciate you and your honesty and inviting me today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you for even speaking to me this long and sharing your story.
Of course.
Thank you so much for tuning in today's episode of the Lupus Speaks Podcast. I hope you found some inspiration, encouragement, and a few loopy gems to carry with you on your journey. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with other lupus warriors who might need to hear this. And remember, you don't have to walk this path alone. We're building an incredible community here, so follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Lupus Speaks, or check out lupusspeaks.org for more ways to connect and get involved. And until next time, peace and be intentional. Hello, Lupus Warriors and listeners. I have exciting news to share with you. On December 13th, I'll be honored at the Brave Ball as a Lupus Warrior honoree. That's right. This December, I'll join other Lupus Warriors and supporters for a special night of celebration. The Brave Ball will take place in Atlanta, Georgia. The theme is Blackout Lupus. So guess, wear your best black attire. And Lupus Warriors will be proudly wearing purple. If you'd like to be part of this inspiring night, grab your tickets at tommyab.com. That's spelled TOMMMIAB.com.